Disclaimer: a majority of things said in this video are based on pure personal theory and speculation. Please do not go sending hate to anybody who agrees with these takes in the comments. Now, without further ado, please enjoy the video. Welcome to part 3 of my Fatui Harbinger series, where today I am probably going to end up getting raked over hot coals. I know I've said that before, but I think today might actually be the day, because we are doing Columbina, aka the damn slut. And the reason why I say I think today might finally be the day I do actually end up getting raked over hot coals is because even though I swore to myself before I posted the first video of this series that this would never become a slander series, Columbina is the only one so far that I have truly heavily disliked what they did with her character. And this is where I call back to something I said back in Dottoro's video. Now, I will not deny that there could be some rewriting going on with the Fatui and just kind of the game in general, but we will talk about that more next month. If you want to know the full context behind that, I highly recommend just watching his video, because there is a lot to it, but the summary is there are a lot of people who fully believe that the Fatui as an organization are being rewritten. And I'm not going to rehash my whole argument here, but the reason why I said at the end of that statement, but we'll talk about that more next month, is because I believe that if anyone was rewritten, it was Columbina. And I do have reasons outside of, oh, I just don't like her, because I actually don't mind her. Like, based on what I was expecting, I am disappointed, to say the least, but I understand why people like her, and she is pretty okay. But I don't think the route they wound up going with was what they originally intended. Because, and I think this is a thing a lot of people forget, and where I say some rewriting is involved, Nodcry wasn't originally in the lineup of nations. Heck, I'm pretty sure the dev team admitted that they added it because they thought that there were too many loose ends that needed to be tied up. And let me just say this, I have not finished a Nodcry, but what I have played through, it's like, yeah, you tied off the loose ends, but not with bows, but confusing ass knots. Anyway, so we know for a fact that Nodcry was added later on in the development. It would have needed to have been added after 2.7 because that was when Tartaglia finally got his voice lines about the other Harbingers, and I believe that was also when A Winter Night's Lazo came out as well. But before 5.1, because that's when we first heard about Nodcry in the Marvelous Merchandise event from November of 2024. And then also Mavuika making the presumption that that's where we were heading next on our journey after wrapping up everything in Natlan. So, in my mind, and this is a rough timeline, I think the addition of Nodcry to the lineup of Archon quests would have happened somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5. So either towards like the middle tail end of Sumeru or middle tail end of Fontaine. And I specifically say the addition of the Nodcry Archon quests, the Song of the Welkin Moon storylines, if you would. And I say it like that because I feel like adding a nation that wasn't already intended any point after about 3 or 4.0 would have just been way, way, way too much work. So, I actually speculate that Nodcry was originally meant to be a sub-nation of Snezhnaya that was already partway developed. And yes, it is technically a Snezhnayan sub-nation. It is the southernmost point of Snezhnaya, but when I refer to it as a sub-nation, I am referring to it in the same way that Dragonspine is a sub-region of Mondstadt, or Enkanomiya is in a way a sub-region of Inazuma, or the Chasm is a sub-region of Liyue. Essentially, it would have been primarily led by world quests, though there may have been an interlude quest in there as well. Now, that's Nodcry as the region itself. What about Columbina? Well, I do think she was rewritten too. And for a little bit of this, we are actually going to turn to Tartaglia's voice line about her. Now, I know I've said in the past, take whatever this boy says with a grain of salt, because he's kind of doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. But in this case, there's one particular part of his voice line that I want to highlight. And actually Wanderer's voice line about her as well, but we're gonna start with Tartaglia, where in his voice line about the damselette, he says, quote, "The Fatui Harbingers are ranked by strength, and I have no idea why that girl is number 3. I'd test my skills with every Harbinger who ranks above me if I had the chance. But when it comes to her, something just doesn't feel right. Anyway, I'd be careful around her." The line there that I want to highlight is the first one. The Fatui Harbingers are ranked by strength, and I have no idea why that girl is number 3. In a way, this is Tartaglia calling her weak and questioning how she's ranked as high as she is. And it is now I want to turn to Scaramouche's voice line because he says something kind of similar. Wanderer about damselette. Quote, "Let me ask, what should you do if you encounter a damsel who is oblivious and innocent at any given time, and unconcerned and unfeeling in any given situation? If it were me, I could at least challenge her to a fight, but if it were you, with your consciousness, I would stay away from her." His voice line implies something similar to Tartaglia's, that he thinks that he could beat her in a fight and that he should be outranking her, and that he also sees her as a little bit of an airhead who is probably too quick to trust people. However, her being a literal moon goddess kind of changes the meaning of at least Tartaglia's voice line, because it goes from being how is she ranked so high to how is she not ranked higher? Because, and this is what gets me and a part of why I think they changed her role as well, what do you mean this literal goddess is being outranked by a semi-immortal / possibly fully immortal mad doctor, scientist, scholar, and a cursed knight? Even if she is timid and doesn't use her powers all that often, the Tsaritsa would know what she could do. She would at least outrank one of them. So if I'm going down the route of, I think if they rewrote any of them, it was her, what was she before Nodcry? Well, I think she was an angel. Look, I know this is how a lot of the fandom interpreted her before her introduction, but it makes sense. And that directly but indirectly brings me into my second set of reasoning, her outfit. Her outfit from a silhouette standpoint, I'm not talking about the color, just the silhouette, is based off of that of the Luna moth. And I will say, it is a cute outfit. Do I wish they had made the dress underneath like a little longer? Yes. Otherwise though, it's adorable. But when you pair it with her hairpin, it doesn't make sense. Like, you have this outfit that has this stunning moth motif, but then you have her hair accessories that are feathered and have more of a bird motif. And then her constellation is also a crying dove. So, if anything, it'd be more accurate to say she's had long-term bird motifs, because we saw her hair in her hair clip all the way back in Winter Night's Lazo, and people speculated the crying dove being her constellation from the moment the Fatui Harbinger constellation wheel came out. So she's had these bird motifs for a long time, and then suddenly she's put in an outfit that has much stronger moth motifs. Yes, I do believe she was originally supposed to be an angel, or more accurately, and I have to get through this as quickly as I can, a Seelie. Because within Genshin's lore, Seelies are the devolved form of angels, essentially angels having had their physical forms stripped away, leaving only the Seelie husks. And we actually know of 2 of these angels within the game. There is Nicole, who we have actually met. However, the one I really want to talk about more is Nabu Malikata, aka the goddess of flowers, who we heard about all the way back in Sumeru. Essentially, after a calamity that was caused by an angel falling for a human, all of the angels were punished by having themselves stripped of their physical forms, most of them becoming Seelies, with the exception of Nabu Malikata, who was for the most part able to maintain her physical form. I say for the most part because she was described as ghostly and husk-like at some point. Also, this particular calamity that caused the Seelies to lose their physical forms could also likely be the one that caused the fall of the moons. Along with that, both the angels turned Seelies and the Moon Sisters were supposed to be guides for humanity early on in their existence on Tevat. So I believe that before the addition of Nodcry as an Archon Quest linked nation, Columbina was supposed to be an angel who escaped the calamity against the Seelies in a way similar to how Nabu Malikata did, where she proceeded to wander the earth for a couple centuries before inevitably settling in with the Fatui after their formation. This would also make sense with Wanderer's description of her, him calling her innocent and oblivious at any given time, and unconcerned and unfeeling in any given situation, as if she still lives with the fear of losing her physical form over showing concern and emotions. That's at least the short version of what I think they originally intended. However, it's actually because of the connection between the Seelies and the moon goddesses that I think when they added Nodcry and were looking for who was going to be the goddess of this nation, they sort of defaulted to Columbina because she already had that connection. But, that's just a theory. As for if I think she was introduced at the right time or not, sort of depends. I mean, if we're going off of what I think her original concept was, Snezhnaya would have worked great. However, if we're going off of her updated, concept, yeah, no other place other than Nodcry would have made sense, really. And actually, since I brought it up earlier, I may as well bring it up again now. Her constellation, they changed it. Originally, it was just the crying dove, but now it's her looming over / holding the crying dove, and I think they did that because every other Archon's constellation depicts them in some way. And because she is, in a way, considered an Archon, they changed it just so she would, match with the others more, but they also kept the crying dove in there because that's what they had been teasing it as for years. Or I guess more accurately, had, just teased it as the constellation of one of the Harbingers, but we all immediately connected it to Columbina. I think they mentally, the dev team mentally had all of them assigned to a Harbinger, but we all just caught on to that one being connected to Columbina. Also, the reason why I talked about Nodcry the way I did earlier, specifying the Song of the Welkin Moon Archon quest being added later on, and how it was likely an already somewhat developed sub-region, is because, again, I said, if anything, it was probably added somewhere towards middle tail end of Sumeru, or middle tail end of Fontaine, is because I will even acknowledge 1.5 to 2.5-ish years, and obviously all the occupying space between that, is not a lot of time to develop a whole new region for a game like Genshin. However, taking an existing region, making alterations to it and its story, especially again if it was meant to be a sub-region with an existing world quest tied to it, and possibly a subplot off of the existing Archon quest or an interlude quest, making tweaks to that would be more manageable. I could do a whole video on my Nodcry speculations, but anyway, I gotta wrap this up because looking at the timestamp, I already had to divide it into 2 parts. Oops. Anyway, I know this one was a little all over the place. This series is almost completely unscripted, which leads to my thoughts sort of jumping around, so I try to make them as cohesive as I can. Anyway, next character on the list is Arlecchino, who will be out sometime in April. In the meantime, tell me what you thought of this video, tell me what you thought of my theory, because it is all personal opinion and personal speculation, but I still want to know what you thought in the comments.